back to our fourth installment of the presentations, the emergence of thought and language, the cognitive development in infancy and early childhood. Okay, the onset of thinking, according to John Piaget's account, the basic principles of cognitive development. Let's take a look. Okay, one of the important concept or term that is used by John Piaget's cognitive development is scheme. No, schemes is a mental structure that organizes information and regulates behavior. Para siyang nagkakategorize ng mga knowledge, object inside our brain. No? It is how we organize the information in our mind. Yan, by the use of scheme. So as infant, very simple lang. We coordinate our sensory experience by the motor movements or motoric functions. Kaya tinatawag yung first stage sa cognitive development ni Piaget na sensory motor, no? More on physical activities lang ang ginagamit natin para maintindihan yung paligid natin. Ayan, as infants, no? More on physical. Wala pang words, wala pang gestures, more on actions, perception, sensation. And then as we grow older, as preschool, pupunta tayo dun sa conceptual, no? Functional and conceptual relationship ng mga bagay-bagay. And a little bit older again, when we are in the adolescent, abstract thinking na. Yan, we can now categorize um, things na hindi natin nakikita o nahahawakan, mga intangible concepts. Yan. Okay? Okay, another important aspect or term by John Piaget is the assimilation and the accommodation. So first, let's talk about the assimilation. So according to Piaget, assimilation is taking in information that is compatible with what one already knows. So ito yung pagtanggap ng mga impormasyon sa ating paligid na naaayon dun sa kung ano na yung alam natin. Ayan. So it occurs when new experiences are readily incorporated into existing schemes. Like for example, extending the grasping scheme to new objects, blocks, toy cars, and other small objects. Yan. For example, sa bata, alam na niya na yung mga object na malapit sa kanyang bibig, no, or yung mga dumadampi sa kanyang pisngi, ay pwede niyang isubo. So, i-extend niya yon hindi lang sa nipple, hindi lang doon sa kanyang dede, kundi pa, maging doon sa ibang bagay na madadampi sa kanyang pisngi. Kasi, meron na siyang scheme na yung routing, yung stocking scheme na nasa mind niya, na nakakategorize na that everything that touches his or her cheek can be sucked, no, can be, or is food, no, na pwedeng kainin. Pero yun nga, as we grow older, pwedeng magbago yung scheme na yun. Yan. So, doon papasok yung accommodation, na merong bagong information, pero hindi siya naaayon doon sa dati mo nang alam. So, ang gagawin mo, i-accommodate mo yung information para mailagay mo siya o maiayon mo siya dun, kumbaga ma-update mo yung dati mo nang alam. Yan. Na-update yung dati nang alam. Yun yung sa accommodation. Sa assimilation, ginawa mo lamang o ginamit mo yung information o knowledge na dati mo nang alam. No? Dati mo na siyang alam. Like for example, ngayong adult na tayo, yung sa cellphone, di ba, we use conventional cellphones before. Ngayon, mga touch screens na siya. Android na. So, meron na tayong previous knowledge about how to use a cellphone, di ba? Paano mag-type, paano maggamit ng keypad, paano mag-call, mag-text. Ngayon, sa bagong cellphone na tinatawag na natin ngayong smartphone, pwede pa rin natin siyang gawin, no? Ina-assimilate pa rin natin yung kung ano yung alam na natin. Pero ina-accommodate din natin yung bagong mga function niya like pwede kang mag-picture, 'di ba? Pwede kang mag-record ng voice and pwede kang mag-search, no, sa internet. So, ganun daw yung pag-take ng mga information, ganun daw yung process ng ating construction of knowledge and information, assimilation and accommodation. Now, let's take a look no, dun sa accommodation. Ayan. But before that, tingnan muna natin tong example, no? Assimilation. So here we have a dog, a puppy, no? So a child saw this four-legged animal for the first time. Pero meron na siyang tapos tinawag niya itong four-legged pet doggy. And then kapag nakakita siya ng similar na animal na merong four legs that walks on land, tatawagin niya rin itong doggy. Ay, doggy, no? Kasi nga, ginamit niya, inassimilate niya yung dati niya ng information na kapag four-legged and walks on land is called a dog. So, every time na makakita siya ng four-legged animal that walks on land, tatawagin niya itong dog or doggy. That is assimilation. Ayan. So, ito yung sa accommodation. So, as I've said, changing existing knowledge based on new knowledge. So, meron ka ng existing knowledge, halimbawa sa telephone, then nakakita ka ng cellphone. So, pwede mong magamit, no, yung dati mo ng knowledge. Pero kung may bago na ino-offer, no, na function yung object na yun, then you will accommodate, no, you will update, imo-modify mo yung dati mo ng alam. Yan. So, continuously, tayo ay ganyan. Since childhood, since infancy, early childhood, ganyan na yung process ng ating pag-take ng knowledge and information. Okay? Okay, so here is an example of accommodation. So dito nakikita natin na yung bata, meron na siyang existing knowledge of what a four-legged animal looks like and what it is called. Ngayon tatawagin niya itong doggy even though na hindi naman yung dog. Pero dahil meron tayong accommodation as cognitive development natin, babaguhin, no? Pwedeng i-modify by the help of an adult or anyone, no, na pwede namang sabihin na, no, that's not a dog, that is a cow, or that is a horse. Yan. So, i-accommodate mo yung existing knowledge mo, i-modify mo siya that not all four-legged animals are called dogs. Yan. Pwede rin cow, pwedeng horse, di ba? Yan. According to Piaget, a process by which children reorganize their schemes to return to a state of equilibrium when disequilibrium occurs. So every time daw na nakakakita tayo ng bagong information, um, nararanasan natin yung disequilibrium, nawawala tayo sa balance, na out of balance yung ating mind. Lalo na kapag meron tayong existing knowledge of something and then merong bagong knowledge or information na nawiwindang tayo. So, to restore the balance, current but outmoded ways of thinking are replaced by a qualitatively different, more advanced set of schemes. So, sabi ni Piaget, active, constructive ang thinking. Ibig sabihin, meron tayong own ways, no? Involuntary to. We are, kumbaga, uh, we look for ways on how to organize our schemes and to attain the balance ng ating mind para mas maintindihan natin, no? Para makapag-adapt tayo doon sa environment. Like for example, ngayon ko lang nakakita ng smartphone pero meron ka namang existing knowledge on how to use a phone, 'di ba? So by using your previous knowledge and then accommodating the new knowledge, pwede mo ngayong i-update yung kaalaman mo para mas maintindihan mo yung environment mo. Yan. So tayo daw ay mga active, no? We search our own uh, ways on how to update our or reorganize our schemes. Ayan. Okay, so here are the 4 stages of cognitive development according to John Piaget. Si John Piaget isa nga palang Frances, no? He is a French psychologist, neurologist, no? And he experimented on his children, on his 3 children, no? 3 babae yon na pinag-eksperimentohan niya para mag-come up siya ng ganitong klaseng theory. So, yung 3 anak niya na yun ay iba-iba rin ang edad. Sinubaybayan niya using a longitudinal design of research yung kanilang paglaki. Ayan, kumbaga, inanalyze niya yung cognitive development ng 3 children niya according to their ages. Okay, so we have the sensory motor. Ito yung sa infancy, 0 to 2 years old, the preoperational period, preschool and early elementary school years, 2 to 7, concrete operational, the middle and late elementary school years, 7 to 11 years old, and the formal operational period, or the adolescence and adult na, 11 years and up. So, tingnan natin kung let's take a look on the 2 period of development. Okay, so first, let's try to dissect first the sensory motor stage. So, yung sa sensory motor, from the word senses and motor, so yun muna, kino-coordinate muna yung ating senses, sensory experience, by movement, no, by actions. Ayan. And then, sa sensory motor, merong 6 na sub-stage. So, simple reflexes muna. Yan, gamit yung sensation and action through reflexive behavior. Example niyan, yung rooting, sucking, grasping, diba? Yun muna, simple reflex. And then, pangalawang sub-stage, first habits and primary circular reaction. So, pwedeng ulit-ulitin. So, when an action is repeated, it becomes a habit. Okay? So, ito muna yung first habits, primary circular reaction. So, coordination of sensation and 2 types of scheme. So, habits, such as reflex and primary circular reaction or the reproduction of an event that initially occurred by chance, no? Ano yung mga circular reaction na yun? Ibig sabihin no, for example, hindi niya sinasadya na matutunan niya bigla. Parang halimbawa humawak siya ng toy na hindi naman niya alam na yun ay tumutunog. Pero nung hinawakan niya yung toy, tapos tinry niyang hindi sinasadya na shinake niya, tapos tumunog, nag-create ito ng sound, and then inulit niya ulit, that is a circular reaction, no, primary circular, kasi inulit niya ulit, no, kumbaga, ay, natuklasan niya, no, na kapag pala shinake ko, kapag ginalaw ko, magpo-produce siya ng sound. But of course, hindi niya sinasabi sa sarili niya. Yon ay kusa, no, sa mind lang. Okay? And then, the next substage, the secondary circular reaction. The infants become more object-oriented, moving beyond self-preoccupation, repeat actions that bring interesting or pleasurable results. So, an infant poos to make a person stay near. As the person starts to leave, the infant poos again. Yan. So, dito, mas nakafocus na siya hindi sa sarili niya, kundi sa mga objects na outside the self na, like the other person. No? So, every time na parang napansin niya na kapag nagkukuwing siya, nagstay yung person na yun sa tabi niya. And then, pag hindi siya nagkukuwing, lumalayo. So, parang na-learn niya yon naintindihan niya yon na every time na magkuku siya, ay magstay yung person na yun sa tabi niya. So, uulit-ulitin niya yung cooing. Yan. Uulit-ulitin niya. Dahil, ang gusto niya mangyari ay magstay yung person na yun sa tabi niya. Okay? And then 4, substage, coordination of the secondary circular reaction. Yan. So, coordination ng vision and touch, hand-eye coordination. Coordination of schemes and intentionality. So, dito, um, gumagawa na ng paraan paano makukuha yung object, no, gamit yung kanyang sarili, hindi siya tutulungan ng ibang tao. So, 'di ba sabi nga natin helpless sa mga baby, ang infant. Pero dito, unti-unti natututunan niya na yung hand-eye coordination. So, gaano ba kalayo yung object na yon? Gaano kalayo ko pwedeng extend yung aking kamay para maabot yung bagay na yun? Kailangan ko bang lumakad papalapit doon sa bagay na yun? Kailangan ko bang i-move forward yung aking body? Yan, para maabot ko yung object na yun. So, yan na yung sa substage 4. Okay, and then 5, tertiary circular reaction, novelty and curiosity. Infants become intrigued by the many properties of objects and by the many things they can make happen to objects. They experiment with new behavior. Kaya, halimbawa sa una, halimbawa yung toy car, di ba, paandarin nila kasi nakita nila, inimitate nila sa'yo, ginaya nila kung paano to paandarin, ganyan, ganyan. And then afterwards, they will try to experiment new things na ibabato nila ito, diba, ihahagis, o ikakaskas, or kung ano man yung naisip nilang gawin dun sa object na yun. Kasi na-intriga sila, na-curious sila. Ano pa ba yung ibang pwedeng gawin sa toy na to, sa object na to? Ayan. Kaya natural sa kanila yung binabato, no, pag nanawa na, di ba, parang gano'n, binabato nila, nahagis, um, ayun, kung ano pa na pwedeng gawin sa isang object. And then last substage is the internalization of schemes. So, mga 2 years old na to, no? Papunta na doon. Infants develop the ability to use primitive symbols and form enduring mental representations. So, yan. An example nito, an infant who has never thrown a temper tantrum before sees a playmate throw a tantrum. Ayan, the infant retains a memory of himself, of the event, then throws one himself the next time. So, ito yung process na nag-imitate na sila ng isang event. Ayan. So, gumagamit na sila ng words, no, ng gesture, yan, kaya nagagaya ka na nila, may mga close open, yan, so sa pamamagitan ng words, di ba, saying close open, and then yung action, then i-imitate nila yung event na yon. Yan. And many, many more. Maraming pwedeng ma-imitate, no, ng infant. Yan. So, dito na yon, ini-internalize na yung mga scheme na natututunan nila coming from the environment. So, that's it. That is the sensory motor substages. Okay, so dito sa picture, makikita natin yung dalawang bata, no, na nasa magkaibang stage or substage sa sensory motor stage of cognitive development, Piaget. So, this 7-month-old is in Piaget's substage of secondary circular reactions. So, ano kayang sinasuggest, no, ng substage na to? So, dito yung example ko a while ago na, yun nga, na na-intrigue siya dun sa object, no, whenever he or she tries to shake the toy, it produces sound. So, yung consequence na yun nga, yung production ng sound na yun, which is pleasurable, yun yung nagbigay sa kanya ng parang motivation para ipagpatuloy yung kanyang ginagawang pag-shake. While the other child in this picture, the 17-month-old, ay nasa tertiary circular reaction, wherein now, he or she is intrigued naman or curious kung ano pa yung ibang gamit o function ng object na hawak niya. No, like for example, diyan sa blocks na yan, pwedeng ihagis niya or pagulungin niya or pagpatong-patungin niya any way or anyhow that she likes. Yan. So, yun yung kaibahan ng dalawang substage. So, here, the sensory motor thinking ends with or starts at 0 to 2 years old. So, it lasts from birth to approximately 2 years. Adapting to and exploring the environment. So, yan muna yung ginagawa ng infant. So, they try to understand objects in their environment by means of acting on it, di ba? By means of their motor functions. Kaya sensory motor. Yan. And then, it will end when the child achieved or accomplished the what we call object permanence, wherein objects exist independently of oneself. Yan, not until 18 months. So, ibig sabihin, ang child, ang infant per se ay he or she cannot yet distinguish or differentiate herself or himself from his or her environment. Parang ang nasa isip niya ay kasama siya doon sa environment. Hindi siya separate na person or entity. Yan. And then by 18 months, once na nakakagamit na tayo ng symbols such as words, numbers, then we begin to talk and use gesture and then pretending play. So we do pretend play. Ayan. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na object permanence. So, at first, once na hindi pa nga natin na-differentiate yung ating self as a separate entity from the environment, wala pang object permanence. So, he argued, no, Piaget argued that object permanence is one of infancy's landmark cognitive accomplishments. So, for this 5-month-old boy, out of sight is literally out of mind. So, pag nawala na sa paningin ng baby ang isang object, literal na wala na yun. So, hindi niya na yun hahanapin, hindi yun mag-stay or mag-exist sa mind niya. So, the infant looks at the toy monkey dito sa left photo, but when his view of the toy is blocked dito sa right photo, he does not search for it. Then, several months later, he will search for the hidden toy monkey, an action reflecting the presence of an object permanence. So, I can say that object permanence is a blessing and a curse. Why? Because this is the start of the attachment. Because when we understand that all objects are permanent, we have difficulty in letting go na. So, doon na papasok yung kung parang it can explain why there are people they are hard to or they have having difficulty to let go, di ba? Um, uh, Nahirapan sila mag-grieve, di ba? Lalo na pag namatayan or umalis or iniwan. Kasi nga, meron na tayong intindi na ang mga object ay permanent. And we consider persons also as object. Yan. Kasi we become attached to it. Diba? Yun. So, I think object permanence has a lot to do with the attachment issues. So, pupuntahan natin yon when we are there, no? Okay, so now let's go to the pre-operational stage of thinking, 2 to 7 years old. So what is unique in the pre-operational children is the egocentrism and animism. So when we say egocentrism, they have difficulty in seeing the world from another's point of view. So the child believes that all people see the world as he or she does. For example, a child gestures during a telephone conversation, not realizing that the listener cannot see the gestures. Diba? Halimbawa, makausap niya yung kanyang lolo sa phone or mama sa phone, no? And then, and then the lolo or the mama ask her if she has already eaten. And then, umiling siyang ganon. So, akala niya, nakikita siya nung kausap niya sa phone. But of course, hindi, no? Siya lang yung nakakakita ng point of view niya na yun. Yan. So, egocentric yung kanilang thinking. Animism. Animism crediting inanimate objects with life and lifelike properties such as feelings. So, nilalagyan ng buhay, nilalagyan ng life, yung mga inanimate o mga walang buhay na object. Kaya sa mga drawings nila, di ba, they put life to it. They draw the sun with with a happy face on it, di ba? Or even the clouds, may mga mata, may bibig, di ba? And even the plants, the flowers. Yan, they talk to plants, they talk to the flowers. They even talk to a chair, whenever they bump to it. Yan. Kaya, yan, common sa kanila ang animism. And of course, kaya din sa time na to, 2 to 7, mahilig sila sa mga cartoons, diba, sa animation. Yan. Kasi they love, ito pa lang yung kanilang thinking eh. Yan, animistic. Yan, and egocentric. Alright, so this is how to explain the egocentrism. This is an experiment called the Three Mountains Task. Ayan, so dito sa unang figure, figure, ayan, the model of mountains. So the child seated here in the A view, yan, ito yung nakikita niya. And then the D is the left, B is the right, and then C yung sa kabila. Ayan, so view 1, okay, shows the child's perspective from where he or she is sitting. Okay, etong photo 1. And then view 2 is an example of one of the photographs the child would be shown. Okay, along with other photographs taken from different perspectives. It shows what the mountains looks like to a person sitting at spot B. When asked what a view of the mountain looks like from position B, the pre-operational child selects a photograph taken from location A. So, ito yung may green, may brown na mountain, at nasa likod yung malaking mountain. Yun yung pipiliin ng pre-operational child. Yan. Kasi yun yung view niya at the time. No, a child who thinks in a pre-operational way cannot take the perspective of a person sitting in another spot. So, hindi niya makikita yung view from B, yung view from C na nasa likod, at yung view from D na nasa kaliwa. And the child who is egocentric ay akala niya, nakikita mo rin yung point of view niya. Kaya when we talk to a pre-operational child, nile-level natin yung thinking natin sa kanilang thinking, no? Hindi naman baby talk, kundi bata natin sila kinakausap. Hindi sa point of view natin, hindi lang matatanda. Okay? Kasi ganun pa lang yung kanilang cognitive development. Okay? Another concept in the pre-operational thinking is the centration. So it is a narrowly focused type of thought characteristic of pre-operational children. The child focuses on one aspect of a problem or situation but ignores other relevant aspects. So it is used in experiments involving conservation. So nakafocus lamang sa isang um, characteristic, no, yung isip ng bata. Halimbawa, sa pag-describe ng object, syempre, ano ba yung mga characteristic ng isang object? Nandiyan yung length, yung weight, volume, texture, yung dummy, no, yung amount, ano pa, yung density, at kung ano-ano pang characteristics. Pero yung isang pre-operational child, isang characteristic lang siya nakafocus, isang aspect lang. Length kung length, volume kung volume, um, height kung height. Okay? So let's take a look at the example on the next slide. Ayan, dito makikita natin no, yung sa law of conservation na yung yung glass na merong water or merong liquid, isasalin dun sa taller glass, and then you will ask the child which has more, okay, which has more volume of liquid. The child will tell you, no, the pre-operational will tell you that the taller glass has more liquid, no, rather than the short glass. Why? Kasi nakafocus lang siya dun sa height ng glass. Hindi niya nakita o hindi niya nabigyan ng focus yung or importance yung volume. No, na same volume naman. They have the same amount. Yun nga lang, isinalin lang natin sa taller glass yung isang liquid. Yan. So that is an example of a conservation task. Pwede nyo itong gawin as example sa inyong mga, let's say, mga 2 to 7 and length. Okay, so sa number, here in this example, we can see that there are 8, no? In each row, there are 4 rows there are 4 objects in each row. And then, you manipulate the objects, no? Medyo inawang-awang mo yung or pinart mo ng konti yung nasa first row to make it more longer. And then, you ask the child, a pre-operational child, which row is longer. So, ang pipiliin niya ay yung first row na medyo nilayo-layo mo lang. Pero kasi hindi niya nakikita na same number of objects yung nasa parehong rows, no? Medyo inawang mo lang siya to make it looks longer, no? And then, next, the matter. There are 2 identical balls of clay that are shown to the child. The child agrees that they are of equal amount. But when you change the shape of the other clay, no, flinaten mo siya, and then you ask the child which has more clay, ang isasagot niya sa'yo, no, ng pre-operational child ay yung naka-flatten. Kasi mas mukha na siyang mas malaki, mas mahaba, kesa dun sa isang ball of clay. And then, sa length naman, so there are 2 sticks aligned in front of the child. The child agrees that they are the same length. And then, medyo iginilid mo lang, no, papakanan yung isang stick. Yan. And then, you ask the pre-operational child which is longer. And then, ang sinagot niya, syempre, yung nakaawang. Kasi mukhang, sa point of view niya, mukha itong mas mahaba compared dun sa nasa ilalim. Yan. So, ganun yung thinking, no? Wala pa siyang, yun nga, yung law of conservation. Centration pa lang siya. Ibig sabihin, his focus is narrowly focused on a certain or one aspect or characteristic of an object. Another thing or another aspect of a pre-operational thinking is the appearance as a reality, no? Nabanggit nga natin before yung animism, no? So the child assumes that an object really is what it appears to be. So for example, a child believes that a person smiling at another person is really happy even though the other person is being mean. So hindi niya nakikita yung kung ano yung totoo behind that smile, no? So kung ano yung pinapakita mo, yun yung totoo para dun sa bata. And a glass of milk looks brown when seen through sunglasses. So, hindi niya nakikita yung part na nakasuot siya ng sunglasses na may shade ng brown, no? So, naniniwala siya na brown talaga yung color ng milk, no? When it is seen uh, by the sunglasses. Pero pag tinanggal niya yung sunglasses na yun, of course, magugulat siya na kulay white pala yung milk. And then a piece of hard rubber looks like food. Ayan. So, yung mga toys, no, minsan hindi rin okay na parang yung mga real life objects, no. Kasi nga, ah, akala nila totoo yun, tunay yun. So, ang mangyayari, baka isubo, baka kainin, diba, maka malunok, delikado yun. So, yan, appearance as a reality. So there are two general principles of information processing in infancy and early childhood. So the brain of a child, no, is compared to a computer. Ayan. So mental hardware is the neural structures that are built in and allow the mind to operate. So syempre bata pa, dun pa lang nagde-develop yung mga brain structures, yung mga neurons, nagko-connect pa lang, nagko-communicate, so nag-start pa lang silang mag-build up. And the mental software is the mental programs that are the basis for performing particular task. So, ito yung cognitive processes, the mental software. So, it refers to thinking, judgment, decision making, intelligence, creativity, uh, and many more. Many more higher order thinking skills. Ayan. Human thinking is based on both mental hardware and mental software. As children develop, their mental software becomes more complex, more powerful, and more efficient. So, parang computer nga. Diba? Yung mga lumang computer, syempre mababa yung memory, madalas naglalag. So, ganun din yung sa bata. As a child grows older, mas nagiging complex, mas bumibilis, mas dumadami yung storage capacity ng kanyang memory, mas nakaka-remember na siya, and mas kaya na niya mag-solve ng mga difficult problems. So that's how our brain process information. Okay, according to information processing theory. So parang inihahalin tulad yung ating brain sa isang computer. Okay, so let's go to the cognitive processes inside the child's mind, okay? So let me read the following snippet. Hannah was only 3 days old and was often startled by the sounds of traffic outside their family's apartment. Hannah's parents worried that she might not get enough sleep. Yet, within a few days, traffic sounds no longer disturbed Hannah. She slept blissfully. Okay, so in this snippet, we can already sense no, na may kinalaman sa attention yung nais ipahiwatig nung kwento na to. No? At first, the attention of the child is, syempre hindi pa siya ganun ka-focus, no? That's why kapag may mga bagong stimulus sa paligid, meron siyang orienting response. Ibig sabihin, bumabaling agad doon yung kanyang atensyon kasi yun ay novel stimuli or stimulus. Ngayon, kapag lagi na niya itong naririnig, madalas na niya itong naririnig, ay nagiging familiar siya dun sa sound na yun. And then, kapag familiar tayo sa isang stimulus, nawawala yung focus natin or attention dun sa bagay na yun. No? Kumbaga, bumababa yung ating focus. Kasi nga, mas nagiging familiar na. Or in short, na habituated na tayo doon sa bagay na yun. So, let's take a look, no, kung ano ba yung iba pang mga cognitive processes. Okay, so here we are. Attention is a process that determines which information will be processed further by an individual. Because as human beings, we are only limited, no, in terms of attentional capacities. Hindi natin kayang bigyan lahat ng stimuli sa ating paligid ng atensyon. Kumbaga, para kang camera na dun lang, no, sa isang aspect ka lang nakafocus or nakatutok. Yan. And then, so that it will be further processed, no? So, we have orienting response and the habituation. So, ito, binanggit ko na kanina, yung orienting response, nangyayari to kapag bago yung stimulus or unfamiliar. Ayan. So, sa mga bata, since dahil nga bata sila, lahat ng bagay sa paligid ay maaring bago sa pandinig, sa paningin, no, sa pakiramdam nila. Kaya nandoon yung buong atensyon nila. And then once na na-familiarize na-habituated na, yun yung sunod na term, habituation, nagiging unresponsive na tayo dun sa stimulus. So kapag lagi mo na siyang tinatawag or meron kang lagi nang pinapagawa sa kanya, in the long run, hindi niya na ito gagawin kasi uh, nasanay na siya, ano na siya, familiar na siya. So, nawawala yung kanyang focus. So, kaya gusto nila bago ng bago yung mga pinipresent mong ideas, activities, di ba? Yan. Pero tayo, as adults, hindi na tayo, ano doon, no? Kumbaga, kailangan masanay tayo na there are familiar things, activities, no? May routine na tayong ginagawa. And binibigay natin yung ating full attention to whatever task that we do in everyday life. Okay, so here is another one aspect of attention, what we call joint attention. This is a process that occurs when individuals focus on the same object and are able to track another's behavior. One individual directs another's attention and reciprocal interaction takes place. So in this experiment by researcher Richelle Brooks, as she shifts her eyes from the infant to a toy in the foreground, the infant then follows her eye movement to the toy. So Brooks and colleague Andrew Meltzoff 2005 found that infants begin to engage in this kind of behavior called gaze following at 10 to 11 months of age. So as you can see in this picture, the child, no, the baby follows yung gaze, no, yung pagtingin, no. He follows the gaze of the researcher Richelle Brooks in that picture, no, from where she is looking at. Okay, so kung saan man siya nakatingin, nung una, tinitingnan niya si Richelle, no, tuwan-tuwa siya dito sa left photo, but siguro napansin niya na hindi naman sa kanya nakatingin si Richelle. So, ang nangyari, sinundan ng baby yung paningin, no, yung pagtingin, yung gaze ni Richelle doon sa toy. Yan. So, yun ay isang klase ng attention na kung saan tayo minsan nakikita natin, no, binibigyan natin ng focus yung ating kausap kung saan ito nakatingin. Or pina-follow natin yung kung ano yung binibigyan niya ng attention. Ayan, so that is called joint attention. Alright, in this photo, makita natin dito na merong mga windows na merong iba't ibang mga patterns. So, attention is also used in planning. No? That is one important aspects when it comes to planning behavior. So, in one study, children were given pairs of houses to examine, like the ones shown here. So, for 3 pairs of houses, what was in the windows was identical. So, dito sa A, no, pareho lang. For the other 3 pairs, the windows had different items in them, just like here in letter B, no? So, different ang items na nasa loob ng mga windows. So by filming the reflection dun sa eyes ng mga children, the researchers could determine ano yung tinitingnan nila, how long they look, and the sequence ng mga eye movements nila, going from one picture to another picture. Children under 6 examined only a fragmentary portion of each display and made their judgments on the basis of insufficient information. By contrast, older children scanned the windows in more detailed ways and were more accurate in their judgments of which windows were identical. So makikita natin na pagbata pa, hindi pa gano'n ka-focus ang attention. So, madali siyang ma-distract, di ba? Madaling mapagod, unmotivated. Unlike dun sa older children, mas kaya niya mag-focus dun sa isang task, no, sa isang bagay. At kapag ganoon ang nangyari, mas nagiging accurate yung judgment niya at yung pag-decide niya. Therefore, it is very helpful in planning. Yan. Okay. So another aspect or another cognitive process is learning. So sa learning, meron tayong dalawang klase ng conditioning called the classical and the operant. So alam naman natin na yung classical ay more on involuntary response, no? Wherein ito yung according kay Ivan Pavlov na once na meron kang neutral stimulus and paired with repeated pairing with another stimulus, no, it will give the infant a sense of order or a sense of involuntary response na dahil nga pinair siya sa isang condition, stimulus, nako-condition din yung kanyang response. Like dun sa example, no, yung kay Ivan Pavlov, yung sa famous na dog, di ba? Yung salivation ng dog. So when the dog every time he hears the bell, he thinks, no, involuntary response yung kanyang pagsasalivate kasi akala niya mayroong kasunod na pagkain, even though kahit walang pagkain. And then, after repeated pairings, kahit wala na talaga yung food, bell na lang, ay naglalaway pa rin siya or nagsasalivate pa rin siya. So that is called classical conditioning. Classical kasi yun yung pinaka parang first, no? Kaya classic yung tawag. Operant, ito naman naka-base sa consequence, no? Either rewarding, no, reinforcement, or punishing, no, or may punishment after the behavior. So this is more likely a voluntary response kasi you evoke it evokes or it evokes your voluntary response. For example, uh, hindi ka naman talaga nagising ng maaga pero dahil meron kang inaantay, no, merong consequence ang paggising mo ng maaga. Maaga ka na magigising every day. So yan. Another thing is the imitation or what we call modeling or came from the observational learning by Bandura or Albert Bandura. So it involves watching others behave. So sabi, lalo na yung mga bata, they like or they are imitators, no? Kung ano yung nakikita nila na ginagawa ng matatanda o ng mga tao sa paligid nila, ginagaya nila to. No, because it's in their nature and also that is part of their learning. So let's take a look sa iba pang mga examples. Okay, so here are the other examples. A 5-month-old learns that a new toy makes a noise every time she shakes it. So, yung neutral stimulus is shaking. So, sa umpisa, ginagalaw niya lang yung hands niya or meron lang siyang object na ginagalaw niya or hinawakan niya. Pero yun, neutral yun. Neutral yung stimulus na yun. Walang response na nagaganap. Pero, once na, ay, tumunog. So, uulitin niya yun kasi nagbigay ito ng parang magandang experience dun sa baby. So, by means of by means of the noise or the sound, that's why the baby will repeat the behavior again. Kasi nga, kumbaga, ay, kapag shinake ko pala, tutunog siya. So, yun yung sa classical, no? A youngster may smile when she hears the family's dog collar because she knows the dog is coming to play with her. So, yung collar, noong una, ay wala naman itong ano, no? Yung wala naman itong ini-elicit na response. Pero nung pinair ito, repeated pairing na every time na maririnig yung tunog ng collar, ng kolyar, no, na may, siguro may bell yun, kaya tumutunog, ay ibig sabihin nun, makikipaglaro na yung dog sa kanya. So, that what makes the child happy, no? Or inaabangan niya yung pagdating, yung pagtunog ng collar ng aso. So, every time na maririnig niya yun, na ay, nandiyan na yung aso, makikipaglaro na ako ulit sa kanya. So, that is also a classical conditioning. So, ano napansin nyo? Sa classical conditioning, merong tinatawag na association of events, di ba? Ina-associate natin yung collar dun sa playing, di ba? Yung shaking dun sa noise or dun sa sound na minibigay ng toy. Yan. Yung salivation ng dog, no? Or yung bell pala dun sa food. Yan. Kaya nagsalivate. Yan. So, may association ng dalawang event na nung una, wala silang kinalaman sa isa't isa, pero through continuous repeated pairings, nagkaroon sila ng association. Nagkaroon sila ng uh, tawag doon, relationship sa isa't isa. Kaya, na-condition ka that you learned na kapag nakita mo yon, narinig mo yung stimulus na yon, therefore, kasunod na yung susunod na stimulus, na which is associated dun sa naunang stimulus. Yan. So another example here is a toddler may frown when he hears water running in the bathroom. Ayan, so yung tubig, yung lagaslas ng tubig, diba, kung ayaw maligo ng baby, ng bata, magkikreate ito sa kanya ng fear or parang takot na, hala, maliligo na naman ako. Yun ay kung ayaw niya maligo. Pero kung gusto naman niya maligo, magkikreate naman ito ng excitement sa kanya na, ay, maliligo na ako, malapit na ako maligo. Yan. So, that is classical or conditioning per se, no? The way, how we learn things, no? Yan. Applicable din yan sa adults, hindi lang sa children. Okay, so another aspect in cognitive processes is the memory. So there are three important features of memory that exist as early as 2 and 3 months of age. So number one, an event from the past is remembered. Two, over time, the event can no longer be recalled. And three, a cue can serve to dredge up a memory that seems to have been forgotten. So sinasabi dito na as early as 2 and 3 months of age, we can remember by that time only, no? Kasi it's a number 2, over time, those events that can be remembered during our infancy period can no longer be recalled, no? Today. So, pwede namang, kasi 'di ba, nasa tiyan pa lang, 'di ba, nakaka-familiar na sa sound ng nanay niya, 'di ba? Yung kwento na The Cat in the Hat. So, the mere fact na parang paglabas niya, familiar siya doon sa kwento na yon, magre-respond siya, magre-react siya doon sa something na hawak niya or stimulus na something na makapagpapaalala sa kanya doon sa kwento na yon, di ba? So, ibig sabihin, meron na siyang memory nung event na yon, nung kinukwentuhan siya nung nasa loob pa lang siya ng tiyan. Pero, ngayon, kung ipapaalala sa'yo yun ngayon, hindi mo na siya marirecall kasi yung mga memories during infancy, siguro hanggang 3 years old nga ay unti-unting napo-forgotten. Tinatawag yung infantile amnesia. No? Kumbaga, normal yon, that is a natural phenomenon na nangyayari, no, during infancy. So, yan. And then, a cue can serve to dredge up a memory that seems to have been forgotten. So, we can, siguro, a little bit or a fragment of that memory can be remembered or can be recalled. However, hindi siya ganun ka-klaro, hindi siya ganun ka-vivid, no? Or you need something, no, like a cue or a hint, uh, para makapagpaalala dun sa bagay na yun or dun sa event na yun. Yan. So, kadalasan, ang mga cue na nakakapagpaalala sa atin ay it can be a smell, di ba? Kasi sabi nga natin, yung sense of smell, yun yung pinakamalapit sa area ng brain na may kinalaman sa memory, no? Na kaya kapag may naamoy ka, like perfume or food odor, di ba? Parang meron ka kagad maalala na associated event dun sa smell na yun. Alright, so here is the parts of the brain, no, particularly those structures na may kinalaman sa memory. So we have the hippocampus and amygdala. That is right there at the center, no, sa may limbic system, no. So hippocampus and amygdala are responsible for the initial storage of information developed by 6 months. Actually, yung hippocampus, siya yung talagang may kinalaman sa storing of new information. And the amygdala is for the emotional response. So, dahil nga most of our memories ay merong kakabit na feelings, emotions, so mas nai-store siya and therefore it is uh, can be remembered, no? Kumbaga tumatatak talaga sa memory, no? Kapag merong kakabit or kaakibat na emotion yung event na yun. And of course, we have the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the one that is responsible for retrieval, for the memory retrieval. Kaya sumasakit yung ulo mo kapag ikaw ay nag-exam kasi inaalala mo yung mga sagot dun sa exam mo. Ayan. So, yan yung, kasi yan yung involved sa thinking, di ba? Kaya, nandyan yan, nandito yan sa may unahan, no? Sa forehead. Yan, the prefrontal cortex. And the hippocampus is not yet mature until about 20 to 24 months. See? Kaya yung lahat ng maaalala mo, lahat ng memories from that age, specifically 1, 2, even 3 years old nga, medyo mahirapan na tayong i-retrieve because the hippocampus is not yet mature. Kumaga, nade-develop pa lang siya, continuously developing. That's why hindi pa niya kayang ilagay sa long-term memory yung mga memories or events that happened during the infancy period. Okay, so another thing in memory is what we call autobiographical memory. These are memories of significant events and experiences of one's own life. So, about 2 years old, we have this autobiographical memory of ourselves. So, nandito yung sense of self, plus language skills, and memory skills. So, starting sa 2 years old hanggang siguro mga preschool na, so unti-unti, as we gain or as we develop our self-concept, as we become self-aware, and as we develop our language skills, and memory skills, nabibuild din yung ating pag-compose or pag-develop nung or pag-create nung autobiographical memory, di ba? So, nakikilala, kumbaga naaalala natin sino yung naging teacher natin ng grade 4, sino yung first kiss mo, or saan ginawa yung birthday mo, anong handa mo nung birthday mo, and kung ano yung mga mahalagang event sa mga significant points in your life during that time. Yan. So, ang tawag dyan ay autobiographical memory. So, kapag pinasulat kayo ng autobiography ng mga teachers nyo, di ba, ang maalala nyo lagi ay yung mga elementary school years, high school years, yan. So, those are called autobiographical memory. And also known as the episodic memories or episodic knowledge. Okay. Okay, another important factor or skill that we can learn during the infancy and early childhood is the learning number skills, no? So from 5 months old, he or she can now distinguish two objects from three and three from four. And they can also perform simple addition and subtraction and can compare quantities. Yun nga lang, narrowly focused pa, no? And then can detect the larger of two quantities. Okay, learning to count, 'di ba? Kapag mga by siguro 1.5 or 2, 'di ba? Inaano na natin sila na para magbilang, 'di ba? Or halimbawa, bababa lang na hagdan, 'di ba? Magka-count muna or ki-count 1, 2, 3, 4 or isa, dalawa, tatlo, 'di ba? And then we make them watch videos na how to learn numbers, yan. So by 2 years, most youngsters know some number words and have begun to count. By age 3, most children have mastered the three basic principles of counting, at least up to 5 objects. So ngayon medyo advanced sa mga bata, no? Since technology sets in, mas malawak, mas broader yung pwede natin pagkuhanan ng knowledge, no? In terms of numbers. Ayan. And to think na marami tayo na medyo hirap sa numbers, 'di ba? Ayaw natin ng math. Pero ito yung mga skills na bata pa lang, eh, pilit nang itinuturo sa atin ng ating mga parents. Ayan. So, ito yung mga principles of counting na dapat ay visible or observable na sa infancy and early childhood, no? Sa pagitan nun. And then by age 4, they know the numbers up to 20, hindi lang 1 to 10, 1 to 5 hanggang 20, and some can count up to 100. Ayan. So, ano yung mga principles? One-to-one principle, stable order, and cardinality. So, we will talk about that on the next slides. Okay, first principle is the one-on-one principle. Ibig sabihin ng one-on-one, meron lang isang unique na name ang bawat numbers. Kumbaga, hindi siya nauulit, no? It cannot be repeated. There must be one and only number name for each object counted. So, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Kumbaga, you cannot count the same object with the same number. And you cannot label two objects with same number, no? So, one-on-one principle. Okay, the second principle is the stable order principle. So, the counting principle that states that number names must always be counted in the same order. So, pag nagbilang sila, sunod-sunod. Merong order and stable, consistent. 1, 2, 4, 5. So, even though alam nating may kulang, at least sunod-sunod siya. Hindi yung magbibilang ng 5, 2, 4, 1. O kaya 1, 4, 5, 2. Hindi ganon. Kumbaga, meron pa rin siyang stability and order. Kaya, stable order principle. So, kapag ganon siya magbilang, sunod-sunod, ascending order, ibig sabihin, unti-unti, nagkakaroon na siya ng skills in numbers. Yan. And the last principle in counting is the cardinality principle. Sa cardinality, the last number name denotes the number of objects being counted. So, kung mapapansin nyo, when they count, halimbawa 1 to 10, the last number ay nai-emphasize, 'di ba? Kumbaga, pag minention nila, pasigaw ito, 'di ba? Malakas, gano'n, parang 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 boats in the ocean. Ayan. Kumbaga, merong emphasis sa dulo. Ayan. Ibig sabihin nun, yung in-emphasize niya na number name ay yun yung dami nung kanyang objects na binilang. So, that is cardinality principle. So, ibig sabihin nun, marunong na siya magbilang. Okay. Kahit na hindi sunod-sunod, tulad dito sa example, di ba? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 8, di ba? Kumbaga, hindi naman stable yung order kasi ascending siya, sunod-sunod. At the same time, may emphasis sa dulo. So, yung emphasis sa dulo, the last number, denotes the number of objects being counted. Okay, another theory with regards to cognitive development is Lev Vygotsky's theory. Yan. So, the combination of the mind and culture. So, kung yung kay John Piaget ay constructivism, yung kanyang approach, ito ay social constructivism. Because sabi ni Lev Vygotsky, we need someone much better than us, like a teacher or a parent, someone na pwedeng mag-guide or mag-facilitate ng learning. So, itong theory ni Vygotsky ay gamit na gamit sa educational sector. Kaya naman, maganda yung theory na to and useful din siya. So, tingnan natin. Yan. So, Lev Vygotsky from 1896 to 1934. So, kung mapapansin nyo, bata pa siya namatay. Mga around 30s. Ayan. So, habang dinidevelop niya yung theory niya, ayun, nakamatayan niya na yun. Pero maganda, very useful yung theory niya about cognitive development. Ayan, na ginagamit lalo na sa academe, sa educational sectors, settings. Yan. So, according to Lev Vygotsky, development is an apprenticeship in which children advance when they collaborate with others who are more skilled. Children rarely make much headway on the developmental path when they walk alone. They progress when they walk hand in hand with an expert. So, sinasabi ni Lev Vygotsky na we are social animals. We are social beings. We need someone else, we need another person na mas nakakaalam, kaysa sa atin, mas may nakakaalam. Kaya naman sa education, di ba, you need teachers, you need facilitators, you need mentors, di ba, you need tutors. Ayan, para daw mas madaling matutunan yung mga bagay-bagay. Yan. So, kung yung kay John Piaget ay more on parang uh, self-study, di ba? Parang ganun. Kay Lev Vygotsky, kailangan daw ng tutor, kailangan ng facilitator. Ayan. Na pwede tayong makipag-collaborate. No? Okay. So, meron siyang term na ginagamit, intersubjectivity. This is a mutual shared understanding among participants in an activity. So, for example, sa bahay, kapag naglalaro ng games, buong family or siblings, di ba? Two or more siblings playing together jigsaw puzzle or sharing with short stories, di ba? Kumbaga, yung activity na yon nagkakaroon ng intersubjectivity kasi each of us meron tayong kanya-kanyang pagkaintindi, meron tayong kanya-kanyang knowledge sa isang activity or sa isang bagay. So, dahil tayo ay magkakasama, nagkakaroon ng sharing, di ba, mutual sharing ng mga pagkakaintindi natin dun sa mga bagay-bagay. Kaya nakakatulong yung pag-share sa mga activities sa development ng cognition ng mga bata. Yan. So, for example, ayan na nga, parents and children playing board games together, sharing an understanding of the goals of their activity and of their roles in playing the games. Kasi nga, social beings tayo. So, we need other person in order for us to develop our thinking. Yeah. Also, Lev Vygotsky has the term guided participation. The children's involvement in structured activities with others who are more skilled, typically producing cognitive growth. So, yung kung ginagawa to ngayon sa ating yung ating tawag dito, yung academe setting, wherein hindi na tayo teacher focus, kundi learner focus or learner centered kind of education. And we also would like to recommend or sinasuggest din na dapat guided, no, yung mga bata, yung mga estudyante sa kanilang participation. Hindi yung hahayaan mo lang sila on their own. No, kailangan nandiyan ka to facilitate, to guide them, di ba? O on dun sa mga procedures, sa mga rules, ayan. Para daw mas ma-optimum nila or makuha nila yung optimal potential development ng kanilang thinking. Okay. So, parang kailangan nila ng someone na mas better, na mas nakakaalam or expert doon sa larangan na gusto nilang matutunan. So, nangyayari yan, no, sa mga, halimbawa, yung mga YouTube videos ngayon, diba, yung mga how to ganito, yan, maraming mga how to. Yeah. So, we learn from the guide of someone that is more expert than us. So, that is called guided participation. Alright, another important concept in Levygotsky's theory is the zone of proximal development. So, let me read the following snippet. 4-year-old Ian and his father often solve puzzles together. Although Ian does most of the work, his father encourages him, sometimes finds a piece that he needs, or shows Ian how to put parts together. When Ian tries to assemble the same puzzles by himself, he can rarely complete them. So see, si 4-year-old Ian at yung father niya madalas naglalaro ng puzzle. Although, mas si Ian yung naglalaro at si father ay taga-encourage lang, no? Na, oh, galingan mo, sige, o yan, dumulagay yan. O, kumbaga, taga-coach lang, ganyan. Si Ian yung naglalagay ng mga parts together. Tapos nung tinry ni Ian na siya yung talagang by himself lang, hindi niya, nahirapan siya makomplete yung puzzle. So, ganun ka-importante yung guide, yung facilitating manner nung father niya para ma-assemble niya completely yung puzzle. So, ang tawag doon ay yung zone of proximal development. Kumbaga, ito yung kaya mong gawin alone. Kaya mo naman, kaya mong i-solve, no? Kaya mong ibuin yung puzzle. Yun nga lang, itong si 4-year-old Ian, um, siguro mas matagal or hindi masyadong pulido or hindi masyadong maganda yung pagkakabuo dun sa puzzle or hindi rin accurate, no? Pero kaya. Pero mas makakaya niya, kumbaga yung difference nung kaya niyang gawin alone at saka yung magagawa niya with the help of his father, yun yung zone of proximal development. 'Di ba? Kumbaga, yung difference, sana mas, kumbaga, kung may tulong, kung may expert na tutulong sa kanya, mas madali, mas accurate, mas okay yung gawa niya. Unlike kung siya lang yung mag-isang gagawa. So, yun yung sinasabi ni Levi-Gotsky na ZPD or Zone of Proximal Development. Yan. Kaya sa academe, sa educational sector, pinopromote yung ano yung halimbawa bumaksak, 'di ba? Meron tayong tinatawag na remedial classes. Yan. Kasi doon ka papasok ngayon as teacher. Ano yung pwede mong gawin para magawa niya? Kasi ito lang yung kaya niyang gawin nang walang help. Ngayon, dahil ito yung kumbaga kaya niya pa sanang may gawin pang mas better, papasok ka ngayon through remedial classes or remedial. Yan. Para ma-achieve niya yung optimum development niya. Na ito mas kaya naman basta may help lang or may facilitator na mag-guide. Kasi meron nga tayong tinatawag na yung difference ng what you can do alone and what you can do when there is an expert helping you. Again, the zone of proximal development is the difference what children can do with assistance and what they can do alone. Yan. So, the zone, ito yung area. No, kung babalikan natin yung arrow kanina, the area between the level of performance a child can achieve, yung nasa upper limits, di ba? When working independently, and a higher level of performance that is possible when working under the guidance or direction of more skilled adults or peers. Yan. So, I stand corrected. Yung upper ay yung higher level of performance that is possible when working under the guidance ng isang skilled adult or peers. And then yung lower limit or yung lower level ay yung level ng performance na kaya naman niya ding i-achieve when working independently. Right? The scaffolding is another concept in Levi-Gotsky's theory, a style in which teachers gauge the amount of assistance they offer to match the learner's needs. So, hindi naman porke sinabing may help or may guidance, parang teacher na yung gagawa. Hindi naman ganun. Kumbaga, may measure muna ni teacher or kung sino man na more expert kahit peer siya, basta siya yung nakakaalam ng gagawin, i-measure niya muna kung ano na ba yung alam niya, ano na ba yung alam ng bata, ng estudyante, ano na yung current or ano na yung progress para malalaman niya kung ano pa yung pwede niyang ibigay, kung gaano ba kalaki o kaliit na lang yung assistance na i-offer niya dun sa pangangailangan ng estudyante o ng bata. Yan. So, giving help but not more than is needed clearly promotes learning. Yan. Kasi kung ikaw na yung lahat na ikaw na yung gagawa para sa kanya, walang learning na mangyayari. No? Scaffolding yung tawag doon. Yan. Okay, let me read the following story. Victoria, a 4-year-old, enjoys solving jigsaw puzzles, coloring, and building towers with blocks. While busy with these activities, she often talks to herself. For example, once as she was coloring a picture, she said, "Where's red crayon? Stay inside the lines. Color the blocks blue." These remarks were not directed at anyone else. After all, Victoria was alone. So why did she say these things? What purpose did they serve? Okay, so malalaman natin ang sagot sa susunod na slide. Okay. So, ang sagot dun sa kung anong purpose yung siniserve ng pag-talk to herself ni dun sa previous story is called private speech. So, this is a child's comments, no, that are not intended for others but are designed instead to regulate the child's own behavior. So this is a way of guiding themselves, of making sure that they do all the required steps in solving a problem. So sabi ni Lev Vygotsky, kailangan daw yung private speech, no? Parang ito yung viniverbalize mo externally kung ano yung nasa isip mo. So kung ano yung thoughts mo, viniverbalize mo siya using words, no? Not intended for someone else, but for yourself. Yan. And ang purpose din nito ng private speech, once na nagagawa mo ito nung bata ka, mas may chance na it will be internalized, no? Once na marunong ka mag-verbalize ng thoughts mo, it will be internalized as thoughts, as ideas. And then, paglaki mo, mas magiging, mas kaya mong makipag-communicate socially dahil dumaan ka sa private speech. Yan. So, normal yan na kinakausap ng bata yung kanyang sarili, lalo na kapag gina-guide niya yung sarili niya on how to do a certain task. Okay? So, from time to time, as adults, minsan ganyan din tayo, kinakausap natin yung mga sarili natin, especially when we are in difficult times, no? Kapag medyo nahihirapan tayo sa isang task, di ba? Kinakausap natin yung sarili natin, gina-guide natin yung sarili natin. Ayan na, oh, ito gagawin ko to. Ay, ganito mamaya. Di ba? Parang ganun. Yan. But it's not a sign na parang baliw-baliw ka na or what. It's just that bine-verbalize mo lang what's in your thoughts, no? And then, ini-internalize mo ulit, binabalik mo ulit sa isip mo. Ayan. So, dito sa slide na to, makikita natin yung comparison ng dalawang theory or approach, no, sa cognitive development ng mga bata. So, itong sa left side, we have Lev Vygotsky, and on the right side, we have John Piaget. So, again, yung kay John Piaget ay cognitive constructivist, no? So, we are active constructivist of our own knowledge, of our learning, while for Lev Vygotsky, we are social constructivists. So, we need the help or guidance of someone else or someone that is expert or more or better than us, no, in order for us to learn. So, tingnan natin kada aspect. So, sa socio-cultural context, syempre, mas strong ang emphasis ni Vygotsky kaysa kay Piaget. Kasi nga, yung context niya ay more on the cultural, kaya nga mind and culture, no, more on the social, yan, and cultural factors. So, tulad dito, halimbawa sa Asian countries, like the Philippines, di ba? We value our teachers, di ba? Kumbaga, kumukuha pa nga tayo ng mga tutor para sa mas ikakatuto pa ng mga anak natin or mga bata. Unlike sa ibang country, sa ibang culture, mas pinopromote nila yung independent learning, di ba? Self-learning. Pero nowadays, medyo dahil nga dito sa pandemic, ay nagre-resort na rin tayo sa independent kind of learning. But still, nandito pa rin tayo, nandito kami to guide and to help you in your studies. Ayan. And constructivism, yun nga, kay Vygotsky, social. Kasi kailangan ng ibang tao, kailangan ng expert, no? And while kay Piaget, more on cognitive. Ibig sabihin, it is in ourselves. No? It is our own, the workings of our own active mind. Yan. So, sa stages, kay Vygotsky, walang stages. Wala siyang pinupose na stages of development. While si Piaget, strong ang emphasis niya doon sa mga stages, yung 4. Do not forget those stages, the sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. Yung dalawa, hindi ko discuss yun dito kasi yung concrete ay specific for the middle childhood, while the formal operational ay specific naman for the adolescence period. So, aaralin natin yun doon ulit. And then for the key processes, kay Vygotsky, ang emphasis niya ay yung ZPD, the Zone of Proximal Development, yung importance ng language, di ba? Yung sa private speech. Kasi yun yung start ng development ng language. Once na nabiverbalize ng bata yung nasa isip niya, and then, sunod nun, ma-internalize niya na sa sarili niya in a form of thoughts or ideas. That tools of the culture. Kasi yung language, kung walang language, wala. Hindi tayo makakapag-communicate, no, sa ibang tao. Yan. So, by means of language, we can travel, di ba? The words can travel, no, through writing, di ba? Through kahit email nga, pwede rin, no? Through a voice, di ba? Voice recording. Yan. So, ganun ka-powerful ang language. While for Piaget, the key processes are the following. The schema, yung mental representation or categorization of knowledge. Assimilation, no, what you already know. Accommodation, how you modify the new information to what is already existing in your knowledge, no? The operations, di ba? The conservation, and the classification. Ayan. Role of language. So, major ang role ng language kay Vygotsky. Kasi nga, yun na nga, as I've said, di ba, a while ago, this is a powerful tool, no, in shaping thought. Kaya nga merong debate, no, na ano bang nauna? Thoughts o language? Yan. So, of course, yan ay debatable, pwedeng thoughts. No, according kay Piaget, malamang thoughts ang nauna. But for Vygotsky, it's language. Yan. Kaya mo na lamang may thoughts ka. It's because you can verbalize your thoughts. So, language has a minimal role. Cognition primarily directs language. Yan. Yan yung kay Piaget. And then the view on education, of course, kay Vygotsky, no, education plays a central role helping children learn the tools of the culture. While for Piaget, education merely refines the child's cognitive skills that have already emerged. So, nandun na kasi, kumbaga, kahit hindi siya pumasok, independently, matututunan niya rin yung kung paano mag-isip. Kumbaga, madedevelop at madedevelop yung stages, no, ng cognitive development. And then for teaching implications, for Lev Vygotsky, teacher is a facilitator and guide. So like I've said, naka-anchor siya dun sa learner-centered education, no? And we are practicing that kind of education, no? Since lalo na nung dumating yung K-12 curriculum, ang focus na is the learners or the students. It's not the teacher anymore that parang that spoon feeds information. Though, kailangan pa rin talaga. But most of the time, dapat mas kaya nyo na, mas you can now, you can do things na mas better pa kaysa sa teacher nyo. Yan, so not a director. Establish many opportunities for children to learn with a teacher and more skilled peers. Yan. So for Piaget naman, they also views teacher as a facilitator and guide, not a director, but provide support for children to explore their world and discover knowledge. So pareho namang importante, no, on both approaches, either social constructivist or cognitive constructivist, they view the teacher as the facilitator. Yun nga lang magkaiba ng parang purpose. Kay Lev, kailangan yung teacher sa tabi niya. Kumaga someone expert na mag-guide to learn, to achieve, di ba, yung proximal or yung optimal form of learning. Di ba, yung nasa upper limit. While for Piaget, even without the teacher is just the guide, the child can still learn on her own. No, kaya niya matuto, kumbaga kaya niyang mag-develop yung thinking niya into something na more abstract, more formal, more logical, even without the help of someone that is expert. Alright, we turn to language now. So language is one of the, I can say na one of the cognitive processes also. Yan. So ito medyo, yun nga, mas higher na compared dun sa mga nauna, attention, memory, learning, diba? And then now we have language. Okay, so let's talk about first the theoretical perspectives of language. So first, we have the behaviorist view, or according to Bruce Frederick Skinner's operant conditioning. So sabi niya, yung mga bata natututo magsalita when they were given consequences, especially reinforcement, di ba? So first, they babble, no? When we say bubble, ito yung parang combination of vowels and consonants, no? Yung mga ba, 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 blah, 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 parang ganun. So, they talk like Chinese, no? Parang ganun. So, repetitive vocalizing of consonant-vowel combinations by an infant. So, that is bubbling. Ayan. So, when we reward, when we praise, diba, the child, when he or she starts to bubble, mariretain yun sa kanya, and he or she will learn na that specific language dahil yun ay na-reinforce. So that is the behaviorist view. Another view is the nativist view or nativist view. So this is the proponent of this view is Noam Chomsky. Ayan. So according to Noam Chomsky, meron daw tayong LAD or language acquisition device sa loob ng ating brain, no, na ito daw ay innate language processor that contains the basic grammatical structure of all human language. So may certain period, may certain time or age na kung saan mag-activate yung language acquisition device na yon sa ating brain. And then automatically, matututunan natin kung paano magsalita, di ba? Even the grammar, kung paano yung syntax, di ba? Yung pagkakasunod-sunod sa isang sentence, parang ganun. So, we have that language acquisition device. So, innate siya. Inborn, no? That there will be an specific age na kung saan kailangan lang siya ma-trigger, no, ng environment para ma-activate din. So that is according to Noam Chomsky, the nativist view. So in continuation with the nativist view, since nandun tayo sa usaping brain structure, as I've said in my previous presentation, the left hemisphere is the language center of the brain. So, nandoon sa ating left hemisphere, specifically sa may part ng frontal lobe at saka temporal, no, yung Broca's area and Wernicke's area. The Broca's area is nandun sa may parang frontal lobe, no, malapit yan sa ating bibig kasi yan yung area na kung saan naandyan yung production of speech. No, kaya tayo nakakapag-produce ng mga words, kaya tayo nakakapag-construct ng sentences because of the Broca's area. And the Wernicke's area is in the temporal lobe located near our ears. No, because dito naman it processes the information, di ba? So that we can understand, we can comprehend what the person is saying or what are you saying, di ba? So, kumbaga tandem sila ni Broca, yun yung production ng speech, pero yung si Wernicke, siya naman yung comprehension. So, bago mo sabihin, kailangan maintindihan mo muna. Or kung bago ka magsalita, kailangan naintindihan mo muna yung sinabi sa'yo. Yan. So, parang ganun siya. Tandem sila. So that is in connection with the nativist view, that we have certain brain structures na may kinalaman sa language. Okay, another theoretical perspective of language is the interactionist view. So ito may connection doon kay Levi-Vygotsky, no, yung sa theory niya. Kasi kailangan daw ng interaction. Language development is a sub-process of general cognitive development and is influenced by both internal and external factors. So, bukod dun sa, naniniwala din sila na meron tayong language acquisition device. We have these brain structures that help us to speak, no, and to understand. But at the same time, kailangan natin makipag-usap, kailangan natin makipag-interact, makipag-socialize, no? Kailangan natin na nandun tayo sa isang konteksto na kung saan may mga tao sa paligid, na kung saan nagagamit natin yung ating uh, speaking and listening skills. So yan ay the interactionist view. Okay. Now let's go to the ano ba yung simula ng language, no? So when do babies or children speak or learn to speak? So first, they must hear a sound. So kapag walang sound, more likely na wala siyang mapoproduce din na, na speech or words kasi wala siyang naririnig. Words, spoken words need to have sounds, di ba? For example, ano bang, bago mo mabasa ang salitang apple, let's say for example, apple, you need to know what is the sound of A, what is the sound of P, what is the sound of L, and what is the sound of E. So those unique sounds are called phonemes. Sa Tagalog, sa Filipino, di ba, ponema. Yan. So sa English, phonemes. So these are unique sounds used to create words or the basic building blocks of language. So before you can read the word apple, you must know the phoneme or the sound of A, which is A. Diba? Yung P, P. Yung L, L. Yung E, E. Diba? So, A, P, L, E. Apple, E. Yun. So, apple. Bago mo mabasa yun, you need to recognize sounds. So, hindi ganoon kasimple ang pagtuturo ng reading, no? Kaya pag nagtuturo ka ng reading sa let's say kinder or grade 1, you need to emphasize the sound of each letter in the alphabet. Maybe they can read the alphabet from A to Z. They know how to kasi memorize lang naman yun eh. Diba? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Kumbaga parang matik na, no? Mas madali siya. But when you teach the child how to read, then you must first teach what are the unique sounds of each letter. So parang, kumbaga babaybayin mo siya. Babaybayin mo bawat letra, anong tunog ng letra na yun. Kaya kapag inborn sa bata na medyo mahina ang pandinig or sabihin na natin hindi nakakarinig talaga, no? Ayun, mahirapan din magsalita. No? Kasi wala siyang naririnig na anumang tunog. Yan. Sa paligid niya. Okay? Okay, so here we can see the table, no, yung mga rule system ng language. First is the phonology or the sound system of language. A phoneme is the smallest sound unit in a language. So for example, the word chat has 3 phonemes or sounds, diba? Yung ch, a, ch, cha, a, th. An example of phonological rule in the English language is while the phoneme, no, can follow the phonemes t or d, in an English consonant cluster such as truck or drub, the phoneme cannot follow these letters. Di ba? Hindi pwedeng pluck or dlab. Di ba? Hindi po pwede. So, ganun siya. May rule sa language. Okay, so another one is the morphology or the system of meaningful units involved in word formation. So ito yung morphema sa Filipino. Morphology. The smallest sound units that have a meaning are called morphemes. So kailangan merong kahulugan, no? Kumbaga ito na yung vocabulary, parang ganun. The word girl is one morpheme or meaning unit. It cannot be broken down. So parang ito yung salitang ugat yan sa Tagalog. Any further and still have meaning. So when the suffix s is added, the word becomes girls and has 2 morphemes because the s changed the meaning of the word, indicating that there is more than one girl. Ayan. And then we have syntax, the third one, the third rule. The syntax is the system that involves the way words are combined to form acceptable phrases and sentences. Ayan. So, yung pagkaka-arrange, no? Pagkaka-construct ng sentence, naintindihan ba? Kainti-intindi ba? Ayan, may syntax ba ito? Ayan. So, word order is very important in determining meaning in the English language. For example, the sentence, Sebastian pushed the bike, has a different meaning than the bike pushed Sebastian. Diba? So, magkaiba na kaagad ang meaning. Okay? So, and then we have semantics. The semantics is the system that involves the meaning of words in sentences. So, knowing the meaning of individual words, that is vocabulary. For example, semantics includes knowing the meaning of such words as orange, transportation, and intelligent. Ayan. And we have pragmatics, the system of using appropriate conversation and knowledge of how to effectively use language in context. So, paano na ngayon siya gagamitin sa isang sitwasyon? So, hindi laging, kumbaga, yung appropriateness, no, nung language ay appropriate ba? Nararapat bang gamitin? Halimbawa, pag kausap mo yung matanda, kausap mo yung bata, di ba? Minsan, ito talaga nawawala na, no, yung pragmatics. Maaring alam natin ang phonology, alam natin ang morphology, syntax, semantics, magaling tayo magsalita, magaling tayo mag-English. Pero pagdating na sa pakikipag-communicate, gamit ang pragmatics as a rule system, ayun, dun tayo medyo bumabaksak, no? So an example is using polite language in appropriate situations, such as being mannerly when talking with one's teacher. Taking turns in a conversation involves pragmatics, di ba? Yung one at a time, perspective taking, no? Bata pa lang tinuturo na yan na kapag may nagsasalita, huwag kang sasabat, di ba? Huwag ka muna magsasalita hanggat meron pa nagsasalita. Antayin mo siyang matapos. Yan. Ang tawag dyan ay taking turns or perspective taking, no? Yan. So, part yan ng pragmatics. Okay? Okay, so infant-directed speech or child-directed speech. Ito yung ginagawa natin every time na tinuturuan natin sa pagsasalita ang bata. Okay, so we do this all the time. We exaggerated our voice, no? We change our volume, the pitch, no? When we teach the child how to speak. Like for example, di ba kapag tinuturuan natin sila on how to say mama, we say it like this, say mama, diba ganon, say ate, no? Kumbaga may tono, pataas, bababa, tataas, ganyan. Hindi siya monotone, say mama, ganun, say ate, yan. Laging, kumbaga, exaggerated siya. Diba kapag nagkukwento tayo, we read the storybook to the child, ganun din, ine-exaggerated natin yung kwento, nilalagyan pa nga natin ng iba't ibang boses, iba't ibang tono, yan. Para ma-retain sa kanya yung tamang, yung salita, no? Para mas ma-implant, mas matanim sa kanyang isip yung paano magsalita, ano yung mga sinasabi, ano yung language, ayan. So, infant-directed speech. Okay, so steps to speech. So, the first step is cooing. These are early vowel-like sounds that babies produce. At 2 months, yan, nagsasalita na siya ng ganun lang, ganun. And these are not yet called language, no? These are pre-linguistic sounds. Kasi precursor siya for language. Yan. So, necessary siya yung cooing, tsaka yung susunod, bubbling, para makapagsalita. So, kapag walang ganito, walang cooing, walang bubbling, more likely na baka delay yung kanyang language development. Okay, so kaya important ang cooing. And then, this is the bubbling. Speech-like sounds that consist of vowel-consonant combinations. These are common at about 6 months. Yan. So, combination na siya. Yung bababa, dadada, bababa, ganyan. So, para na siya mga syllable-like, ganun, no? But still, these are pre-linguistic. These are not yet called language or words, no? And again, these are important para matutong magsalita. So, kapag walang ganito, hindi nagbabubble, hindi nagkukuwing, possible na delay ang language development. I'm not saying na hindi siya makakapagsalita, but most likely, delay lang naman. But still, makakapagsalita pa rin naman siya. Okay, first words and many more. So 10 to 14 months, they understand what others say despite the fact that they have yet to speak. Okay, so nauuna yung receptive language. Nauuna nilang naiintindihan bago nila matutunan na mag-express o magsalita. Speech is a motor skill, di ba? Kaya nga sabi ko, di ba, yung Broca's area, malapit dito sa may frontal lobe, and then malapit sa bibig, no? Kasi nga, that is a motor skill, how we speak. That requires perfect timing and tremendous coordination. So, nagko-coordinate yung ating teeth, yung ating tongue, no, yung buong mouth natin, yan, sa pagsasalita. Few months later, most youngsters utter their first words. Ayan. And we are happy, no, by then. Age 2 have a vocabulary of a few hundred words. Yan. And then lumadami yan habang tumatanda. At age 6, 10,000 words. Okay. So the grand insight, words as symbols, occurs at 18 months. Yan. So, yung words nagiging symbols na, no? And gestures are symbols too. No, they nod their head if they say yes, no? So, umiiling sila when they say no. They babay like this. Yan. So, gestures pave the way for language. So, ito na yung start ng pre-operational. Diba? Yung pag-use o paggamit ng mga symbols such as words and numbers. And also gestures. Fast mapping, ayan. A child's connections between words and reference that are made so quickly that he or she cannot consider all possible meanings of the word. So, mabilis, no? Mabilis yung pag-connect, no, ng mga salita. Actually, sabi sa mga researches, sa Western countries like sa US, mas unang natututunan yung noun kesa sa verb. Unlike sa mga Asian countries like Korea, Japan, mas nauunang matutunan daw yung mga verbs. Ayan, kasi yun yung mas ginagamit, no? Yun yung mas yun nga, ginagamit ng mga bata, mas laging sinasabi ng mga matatanda, mas lagi nilang naririnig yan. So, yung nouns, it is used as an intellectual tool, while verbs are used for social communication. Okay. Another aspect in learning language is naming errors. So, common to nangyayari sa mga bata na nag-start pa lang matutong magsalita. Yan. So, they underextend or overextend. So, pag sinabing underextension, they define words narrowly than adults do. Ibig sabihin, yung isang label or yung meaning nung object na yon ay para lang dun sa object na yon. Halimbawa, yun nga, halimbawa may kotse sila. So, yung car o kotse, yung kotse lang nila. Pero yung kotse ng kapitbahay, hindi na yun kotse. Or hindi na siya car. No? Or yung ball. Yung ball lang niya, yung toy lang niya, ang tawag ay ball. Pero yung ball ng kaibigan niya o ng kalaro niya, hindi ball. So, that is under extension. Overextension, kabaligtaran. For example, yung car. So, lahat ng makikita niya na umaandar, may gulong, lahat tawag niya ay car. Kahit bus naman ito, o kaya naman van, di ba? Car pa rin. Yan. Overextension naman. Yan. O kaya naman yun, yung doggy, sa lahat ng four-legged animal, doggy ang tawag niya. Kahit hindi naman yung dog. So, yan ay normal na naming errors or mga parang ah, para masabi natin na natututo na siyang magsalita, natututo na siyang gamitin, no, unti-unti yung mga rules sa language. Okay, so the phonological memory, the ability to remember speech sounds briefly, an important skill in acquiring vocabulary. Yeah, so katulad nung kanina yung sa sinabi ko yung sa phonemes, that is the basic, no, unit of language. So the more na nare-remember ng bata, na paulit-ulit niya naririnig yung sound ng specific letter, mas madali para sa kanyang makabuo or makabasa ng isang word. Thus, lalaki yung kanyang vocabulary kasi lalawak yung kanyang vocabulary kasi marami siyang masasabi o maiintindihan ng mga words. Yan. So, children have larger vocabularies when they are exposed to much high-quality language. Yan. So, syempre, pag binabasahan mo ng mga English storybooks, no, mas lalawak yung kanilang vocabulary. Sabi din sa mga studies, no, na the socioeconomic status is related to vocabulary. So, kapag medyo, yun nga, nasa poverty, yung isang family, mas maliit daw yung kapasidad para lumawak yung kanyang vocabulary. Maybe siguro kasi hindi naman, of course sa bahay, hindi naman masyadong high quality language yung ginagamit, di ba? O kaya naman yung pinapasukang school ay hindi naman din ganun ka-adept or fluent pagdating sa English. Kaya yun, mas mababa yung vocabulary, mas narrow, no? Kapag nasa medyo lower socioeconomic status. Unlike sa mga nasa higher socioeconomic status, di ba? Mas accessible kasi yung easily accessible yung education, mas yun nga, isa sa bahay, mas nagsasalita sila ng madalas English, ganyan. So, more likely na mas lalawak yung kanyang vocabulary. So, the more words that children hear, the better. So, kaya mas okay kung nag-uusap no, sa loob ng family, sa loob ng bahay, kaysa walang nag-uusap kasi paano matututo magsalita kung walang naririnig na sound, no, ang bata. Alright, so these are the word learning styles, the referential and the expressive style. So, pag sinabi nating referential, this is an intellectual tool. No? Ginagawa nating reference yung mga words. So, more likely na it involves nouns. No? It involves nouns. So, these are the learning style of children whose vocabularies are dominated by names of objects, persons, or actions. Usually, kapag nasa autism spectrum disorder ka, ito yung dominant sa'yo, referential style, no? Maano sila, marami silang alam, 'di ba? They are intellectual, intelligent, high IQ. That's why yung kanilang language learning ay referential. Yan. Unlike itong sa isa, yung expressive, ito yung medyo kulang sila. Kasi yung expressive style, it's more on a social tool, no? So, this involves verbs, di ba? Yan. So, language learning style of children whose vocabularies include many social phrases. So, hirap sila yung nasa under ng autism spectrum disorder, hirap silang makipag-socialize because hirap silang mag-express ng nais nila, no? Hirap silang mag-verbalize kung ano ba yung gusto nilang mangyari, ano yung feelings nila. Ayan. But they can speak using the referential style instead of expressive style. Ayan. Okay, so in terms of speaking in sentences, ito yung grammatical development, no? So, may formula yan. Laging actor plus action. For example, Mommy sleep, Timmy run. No? Kumbaga may grammar siya, naiintindihan siya na Mommy matutulog na ako or Timmy tumakbo ka, parang ganun. Although, ano lang siya, parang two words, pero it conveys a message already. And then action plus object, pwede rin ganyan. Give me cookie, throw ball. So alam mo na, naiintindihan mo na itapon yung bola, ihagis yung bola. O kaya bigyan mo ako ng cookie o bigyan, ayun, tama, bigyan mo ako ng cookie. Ayan. And then possessor or possession. Kimi pail, Maya shovel. Ayan. So, ibig sabihin, akin yun. Kay Kiming timba, di ba? Kay pala ni Maya, no? Parang ganon. So, even though na two words, no, wala masyadong mga linking verbs or whatever, articles, ganyan, but still, nandun na kaagad yung essence, nandun ah, yung pinaka parang nakuha niya yung dapat na nilalaman para maunawaan at maintindihan yung sentence, even without linking verbs or articles. Okay, telegraphic speech. So, yung kaninang examples, no, dun sa previous slides, those are also called telegraphic speech. Speech used by young children that contains only the words necessary to convey a message. So, for example, Rachel kicked ball, or he eating, or two cat. So, these sentences are called telegraphic speech kasi wala silang masyadong linking verbs, walang articles, hindi kompleto, but still they convey a message. We can understand the message of the sentence. So, ganyan magsalita yung mga una pa lang na natututong magsalita. And then we also have the grammatical morphemes, words or endings of words that make a sentence grammatical. Tulad ng ing, ed, d, or s. Yan. So, this is a wag. Now, there is another one. There are two of them. There are two blank. So, ang sagot dapat dyan ay wags. Diba? Lalagyan natin ang s. So, there are two morphemes na. No, may wag, nag-iisa, at merong wags, mas madami. Two or more. So, grammatical morphemes. And then, they also have over-regularization. Ito nangyayari din to sa mga bata. No, sa mga, yun nga, preschool, no? So, the grammatical usage that results from applying rules to words that are exceptions to the rule. Kumbaga, tama nga naman, di ba? Sabi natin, pag marami, pag plural, lalagyan natin ng s. O, edi, anong tawag sa two-man? Edi, two mans, di ba? O, kaya naman, o, umuwi na. Eh, di ba kapag past tense, lalagyan mo nga naman ng ed. No? Kaya, I go home. Pero ang hindi pa nila na nagigets doon, hindi pa nila naiintindihan, yung irregular. Di ba kapag irregular, you change the spelling, no, to something na mas better. Like sa I go home, instead of go, I went home, di ba? Instead of two months, two men, di ba? Pero hindi nila alam yon, but still okay. Okay pa rin na ganito yung pagsasalita nila kasi nga ibig sabihin naintindihan na nila na dapat kapag marami, lalagyan mo ng s, kapag past tense, lalagyan mo ng ed. Yun nga lang na over regularize. Yan, kasi hindi pa nila alam yung mga irregular noun, irregular verbs na tinatawag. But this is a good sign na papunta na sila doon. Okay, so here we can see the table, no, yung development ng language sa first 2 years. 2 to 3 months, again, they make the cooing sounds and responds with smiles and cooing when talked to. At 20 weeks, ayan na, nakakapag-connect na ng various vowel and consonant sounds with cooing. 6 months, they bubbles, utters phonemes of all languages. 8 to 9 months focuses on the phonemes, rhythm, and intonation of language spoken in the home. And they already have receptive vocabulary of 20 to 30 words. Yan. Kaya nakakaintindi na sila. Though hindi pa sila nakakapagsalita o nakakapag-speak, but they can already understand. No, they can, lumilingon na nga sila kapag tinatawag mo sila sa kanilang pangalan. At 12 months, they use expressive language. Ayan na. They use single words. Halimbawa, pupupo sila or i sila, di ba? They can express now. And then 12 to 18, they uses word gesture combination combined with variation intonations, such as holo phrases. And 18 to 20 uses two-word sentences, so yung mga telegraphic speech. Yan. As for the major milestones of language development, ito naman. No? So from birth to 1 year, yung major milestones ng language development is yung phonemes, cooing, and babbling. Yan. And then about first birthday, ito na yung mag-start na sila mag-talk and to have gestures. And they began to use symbols. Yan. At 1 to 3 years old naman, nag-expand naman yung vocabulary. They use telegraphic speech, and turn-taking is evident in communication by 2 years old. Diba? Yung kapag may nagsasalita, titigil mo na siya, stop mo na siya, and then when it is her turn, saka siya magsasalita. So, yun ang turn-taking. So, parang natututunan niya na yung sa rule, di ba, nung language kanina, yung pragmatics. And then 3 to 5 years old, vocabulary continues to expand. Ayan. Grammatical rules are added, di ba? And they adjust. Yan. So, hindi lang sila basta speakers, they can also be listeners. Okay. So, that is the major milestones of language development.